Welcome to Deal Talk. I'm Jeffrey Veit. I cover a lot of topics on Deal Talk. We have a lot of episodes on a lot of different subjects. Many subjects I've covered more than once, obviously, because of new information or because of a different angle, or maybe it just needed coverage because one of you folks listening wrote in and asked me to cover it some more. Whatever the reason. We've got a lot of episodes, and we can get you an answer to almost anything when it comes to buying a car, truck, motorcycle, boat, motorhome. The point is that we're trying to save you money and grief. This episode, we're going to cover a familiar subject again, more thoroughly. I read a terrible misdirection in Consumer Reports August edition. It just flamed me up, got me all worked up. I pointed out some bad stories by specific writers, but this seems like publicity seeking. The electric vehicle market, trying to help them out without a good cause. In their road report, they talk about consumer demand for electric vehicles being up to 350%. Well, that's misleading prophecy and absolute bullshit. How would they know what the demand is? People don't write it in and saying, I wanted to buy this and I can't buy one, or we're all thinking about buying this one. No, that's purely speculation on their part on the behalf of electric vehicles. Electric vehicle sales account for about 5% of the market, a hair under that actually. And that figure was only because of the shortage of new gas vehicles. It makes it seem like it's doing better than it actually is, but they aren't. I'm not sure how Consumer Report can mind read to come up with this figure, but the demand is, if it was up 350%, that would mean that 22% of the population wanted to buy one. That's just not true. That's not the case. If they read the facts around the market, like J.D. Powers or Automotive News and the stock market, analysts would be telling him that demand for electrical vehicles has dropped. We're going to review the reasons why electric vehicles are a bad choice, but the public has to be aware of the propaganda. They're trying to push these on you, and I don't think for a second that the fake news won't lie, because they do it all the time. That's just, now it's acceptable performance by a news media person. Recently, Elon Musk said that his vehicles were at the industry average or below for new vehicles. Well, that's not actually explaining what he was saying. If you include electric vehicles in the total, they bring the average cost way up so far that a Tesla could be under it, or a few of the Teslas anyway, under the gas pricing. But that's not the case. If you take the electric vehicles out of the average cost, and you figure out what vehicles come to, gas vehicles, the average, you'd still find out that electric vehicles are $10,000 or $20,000 more than fossil fuel vehicles. They'll do anything to twist the story so it sounds good to buy the electric vehicle. And I'm just having this talk today and this week's podcast because it's just, I want to make sure that it gets off on the right foot. I don't know how many people are going to listen, 8 or 10,000 maybe, but you know what? More people should, It isn't the whole story either, because if you add in things like resale value and, and the return that you get on the vehicle, and the difference between the EV and gas is even greater. Putting price aside for just a moment, there are still other expenses and facts that are probably more important than money, like your home, if they catch on fire and your house burns down, or your family, or crime, or additional expenses like the plug-in to get so you can charge in 3 or 4 hours at home instead of 8 hours, or maybe 5 or 6 hours. But you can put in a unit to cost you another $1,500 or $2,000 to put in. They don't talk about all that stuff being in the cost either, but it is. You don't have to do any of that with a gas vehicle. No. Nope, you don't have to do any of that with a gas vehicle. The main reason EVs have been pushed into the market is saving the planet. That's what they use as an excuse. And now you have many scientists sharing the truth. Not activists, not political hacks. No, I'm talking about scientists like Richard Lindzen from the PhD from the meteorology department at MIT, or Teddy Telebody, a PhD of climate studies in Vancouver. They agree it's all a hoax. It is absolute bull. CO2 has not changed enough to have an effect on the planet. And any climate changes are natural right now. In fact, all the time. Why destroy our country and our economy over that? The New World Order wants to control the movement of people, and that's how you do it. You talked about that, what's his name, Schwab or Schlab, or the Slob there from Germany, that wants us to have 75% less people driving. They want that to control the population. It's not anything to do with climate change. They just want to control the population. The planet could handle a lot more CO2 if it had to. We're not on the cuspus of a problem either. There are 3 trillion trees on Earth, and they can process twice the CO2 we're now producing. That's not counting all the plant life and the flowers and the grass and the bushes and all the different things that process CO2. That's just the trees. That's just the trees. Every tree can do about the average is 47 pounds of CO2 can be processed through a tree a year. Well, if you take 3 trillion, you can figure out that there's tons of room left for processing CO2. And the CO2 is not a problem anyway, because it might raise the temperature of the planet eventually a half a degree or a degree. We've had times on this planet when the CO2 temperature has been averaged 4 or 5 degrees more than it does now. But it's not, actually more CO2 would help the plants grow, because that's what plants use. That's what helps vegetables and flowers and all these different things grow. It'd actually be good for them, right? Why not buy an electric vehicle, even if you can afford it? Let's cover that. Why shouldn't you buy one? Put a price aside. What else would make you not want to buy an electric vehicle? By the way, if you like the podcast, please take a couple of minutes and do a review on whatever podcast source you use to get this podcast, whatever one. If you have already done a review, thank you so much. If you want to help your friends and your neighbors, tell them about the podcast, save them some trouble. I don't know how many people have sent me an email after my last electric vehicle podcast, which was maybe a year ago, where I talked about electric vehicles. And I know there's no more in the news now, but talked about them then, and people have thanked me for catching them before they bought one. You know, they'll tell you anything to get you to buy one, and they even make gas vehicles in short supply so that you feel like pressured into buying an electric vehicle. And you'll find out that's just no way. Keep what you got, buy a used car, do something, but don't buy an electric vehicle. That's just the wrong way to go. Tell everybody you know about the podcast, though, and possibly they'll save some big money and you'll be a hero. And if you'd like some written material with you when you're out shopping, then get a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon Kindle or Barnes & Noble Nook. It'll go over the basics for quick reference when you're out there shopping. If you're right in a dealership and time, buying time, you've got something with you to look through to make sure you don't forget something, and it costs $3. It was $3 5 years ago. It was $3 6 years ago. It was $3 last year. It's still $3. Never mind inflation. It's still $3. And it's the best $3 you'll ever spend. I'm going to give you a bunch of answers and reasons actually to avoid the EV question. Electric vehicle manufacturers have been trying to develop EVs for almost 200 years. The first one came out in 1832. Think about that. That's almost 200 years ago. Long before fossil fuel. Fossil fuel didn't come around for a long time after that, for like 70 years or so after that. And they've always tried to hide the downsides of these vehicles, right? They didn't have to in the beginning because there wasn't anything else, and it wasn't being pushed for any particular reason. The purpose of this list is to reveal to you the large quantity of things they don't want you to consider. I used to say these were reasons for you to stop and think twice before purchasing one of these. But the truth is, you should not buy one unless you're looking for a toy or something to play with. You just shouldn't buy one. There's too many reasons, too many important ones that they can't. No, they'll deny them, but people in hell want ice water. It does too many good to deny it, because it's the facts are the facts. You hear it on the news now all the time. How about the first one that comes up with electric vehicles, of course, would be short range anxiety, right? Range anxiety is one of the key factors when it comes to EV downsides. Simply, modern electric vehicles are still range limited due to their small capacity batteries. Most affordable electric cars on the market have a bit more than 160 mile range. However, Tesla has some that gets up to 400 miles, but if you want to spend that kind of money, but they're crazy expensive. And they're still not comparable to the average gasoline vehicle, not even close, and not to mention a diesel-powered vehicle. Modern cars can do a long trip in less than half the time of an electric vehicle because of the stopping and the charging and all that kind of stuff. And, as we've talked about before, the range is not really the range. As you go faster, get out on the highways in an electric vehicle, it takes more battery because they run on electricity, and the higher the speed, the more electricity. It's not like a car where you get out and you're moving and it costs you less fuel. No, it costs you more fuel with an electric vehicle. And then if you run the air conditioner, like this summer's pretty hot, right? You'd have to, and the stereo and whatever else electric, the lights at night and the windshield wipers, they all take from the electric power. That cuts the range down. Oh yeah, they don't talk about that in the sticker though, do they? They don't talk about the fact that the more stuff you use, it's going to take away from the range. Long charging times, they talk about now where you can get them charged faster. To fully charge the batteries, you need to connect the vehicle to a power source, right? This can often take at least several hours. However, Tesla and Porsche advertise that they have supercharging abilities. That's great if you can find a supercharger. That means you can't recharge their batteries to nearly 80% in just 20 or 30 minutes on a supercharger. Yeah, if there was a few, but they're less than 10% of the chargers in the country are superchargers. So what do you do then? Well, you could buy one and put it in your house. You can spend a couple $1,000 and do that. More investment. Even though Tesla and Porsche have made significant improvements, charging is still far from speedy. Not even close to what it takes to fill your gas tank and take off again, right? Putting the fuel in your car only takes a couple of minutes. Charging your vehicle can take all night. If you remember to plug it in. What if you don't remember to plug it in? Well, I guess you can take a cab to work, or you walk to work, or you don't go to work. If the industry doesn't find a solution to this problem soon, it could seriously hurt the electric vehicle market even more because, they can try to get somebody like Biden to say that they're going to invest in charging systems and spend dollars of people driving gas vehicles on charging systems for something that we don't need. That's the question here. That's what everybody wonders about. And people say, "Oh no, that's the there's a problem with the global warming." No, there's not. See, that's the problem. If there's any global warming going on, it's done by Mother Nature. And Mother Nature does that, fluctuates over thousands of years. We're only looking at a 150-year window. That takes place over thousands of years. It's not something we should even be considering, really, in my opinion. And then there's trip planning problems, right? Small ranges and long charging times can put the strain on your road trips. I told you about my trip to Massachusetts a few weeks ago, where I only ran into one gas station, all the ones I went to that had any kind of charging system going on. And there wasn't anybody there charging, to be honest. There would have been plenty of space for you to plug in. But it wasn't a high-powered charging station. It was just a plain charging station. So you plug in and get out your book or close the windows and take a nap, right? You got to know the location of the charging systems if you're going to go, and you have to plan on that, right? And you got to know how long it's going to take on that particular charger because all of them are different, right? You got to know that you have to have the adapter so that your charging plug fits the station's charging plug. So you have to have one of those adapters that covers all of them, right? Other factors to be aware of are the latest weather conditions and temperature changes. Meteorological circumstances affect the electric car's range significantly. Like if it's really cold out, obviously it can affect the range. If it's really warm out, it can affect the range. If you're running the wipers and the headlights and that stuff, that's definitely going to affect the range because it takes electricity to run those, right? That's right. You can't do much about that. That's why electric cars are only suitable for short trips. You can forget driving from coast to coast, at least not in a reasonable amount of time. You'll have to plan each charging stop along the way to avoid getting stranded in the middle of nowhere. And there's even areas, between Dallas and Colorado, and Denver, where there's no electric vehicle that can go that distance, and there's no chargers in the middle. So you couldn't even drive that route. So I don't know about you, but I don't want to get out in the desert and find out there's no chargers. No, you can get out your carry in your trunk a big charging generator and put it out in the sun and plug your car to it alongside the road. I don't know. I saw that once in a meme on one of the sites. I don't know. It's mostly good for urban use. So what's the main playground for electric vehicles? Simply put, it's urban areas. The EV's range is longer if you drive in the city because you're going slower. And second, there are far more charging stations in the metropolitan areas, so you can find out where they are. And that's really a city car. It's like a city bicycle. So you might as well buy a bicycle if you're going to drive around like that. But also, if you run out of juice while driving in the city, which often happens with electric vehicles, people run out of juice, you can easily find a cab, an Uber, a bus. You could have that problem, some form of transportation. You also have to have a tow truck. Yes, you have to have a tow truck. Because you can't go down to the gas station or get down to the charging center and get a can of electricity. Nope. There's only one way. When it's dead, you call the wrecker. They're not so environmentally friendly. While it's true that electric vehicles have zero emissions, did you ever think about what it takes to make just one electric vehicle? Apparently the process of making a big chunk of lithium-ion batteries as well as dispose of polluting since they aren't recyclable. You got to take care of that too. And when you charge the vehicle, right, you're charging it, most of the time you're using a power plant that's powered by coal, right, or thermoelectric. The rising demand of electric power will also raise the level of global pollution. This is actually far beyond what internal combustion engines are doing now. I mean, they've done really great considering how many years we've been using them and how many people use them. I mean, they really work wonderful. The complaint is that they create CO2, and CO2 is not the issue. It is not an issue. I know they'll tell you it is, but go to the scientists at the university's account, the guys that do this for a living, and see what they say. It's not true. And there's more to it. You got 3 trillion trees. They can process the CO2. It would be different if we couldn't, but it can. So it gets up to 400 parts per million for a while, and then the tree processes it. Think about it. It's just not, there's no sense in it. Another one, too expensive. Since electric vehicles feature the latest, most advanced technology, they cost more. For example, there is a range of electric cars for sale on the current market, with the top models going for well over $100,000. BMW's owned a TV lately with that new one they just came out with. It's a $120,000 vehicle. Well, how many people do you know that's considered a luxury vehicle, by the way? How many people do you know, families that can afford that? To buy a vehicle that can't be your only vehicle. Yeah, that's the other thing they don't talk about is that you can buy an electric vehicle, but you can't just depend on the electric vehicle. There's too many issues. Although affordable models like the Volkswagen Golf and the Nissan Leaf, electric vehicles still cost significantly more than models that run on fossil fuels that are identical. The identical model to a Nissan Leaf would be thousands less than the electric vehicle. An electric vehicle, you say, well, they don't have tune-ups. What does a tune-up cost? Cars don't even get tuned now for 80,000 miles, and when you do, it's like $300-400. A battery on that Nissan Leaf is like $10,000. Oh, forgot about that. Repair difficulties. If you own an electric vehicle, you can forget going to your local shop and fixing inexpensively. Regardless of the type and the model, all electric vehicles require specific maintenance and service procedures, as well as extremely high safety standards. Most garages aren't even going to monkey with them until they get in a corner, which would be many, many years. They can talk about, we're going to have 50% of the cars by 2030. When this bunch of maniacs gets out of the office that are in there now, it's all going to change. They're not going to try to tell people to get it out by 2030 because it couldn't even get close. I would be surprised personally if electric vehicles were over 10 or 12% of the market. Now, there's still going to be people that buy them. Sure there is. There's people that like them and they don't have the use. They live in the city. The electric vehicle is fine for them and they have the money. Okay, fine. But why waste your money? And the difference in price, in a lot of cases, you could pay for all of your gas for the first 5 years on the difference in price. Oh. Also, servicing electric vehicles can be quite dangerous because most of the car's mechanics consist of battery packs under high voltage. So you're not going to do any of your own service work, that's for sure. It's going to the garage every time there's something wrong. And also, in the case of fire, you can't put it out with water. Well, you can if you got 20,000 gallons of water. I know one report said 8,000 gallons. Other reports have said 20,000 gallons. I don't know how much. It's a lot of water. You have to use a special fire extinguisher now since the batteries burn at so much higher temperature, right? Car fires at 1,500 degrees. A battery fires at 5,000 degrees. Yeah, that's why they can't put them out. You can't cool them down fast enough to put it out. One of the main downsides of having a big battery pack underneath your car is the additional weight. With most modern vehicles are heavy due to all the extra safety and comfort options, electric vehicles are the heaviest champions. Nothing weighs more than they do. On smaller models like the Kia Soul EV, the electric batteries and that little tiny vehicle weigh 450 pounds. 450 pounds of weight. Now think about that, 450 pounds. However, on some of the high-end models like the Tesla X, and the battery pack weighs 1,000 pounds. Also, the car itself weighs 2.3 tons. Yeah, that's 4,500 pounds. Holy smokes, that's like 3 times your Toyota Corolla. Heavy vehicles mean more tire wear, more energy consumption, more maintenance, more brakes. It just does. And you can follow that in the marketplace with gas vehicles. The heavier the vehicle is, the more it costs. And when you're talking about weight, they want to do garbage trucks with electric charges. Well, they don't realize that for a garbage truck to be electric, it would have to have 2 batteries that weigh about 8,000 pounds apiece. And it would take more wattage to charge the batteries, in that case, than probably many cities use in a day. Oh, yeah. But these aren't things I'm making up. You go online and see it. You'd see if it isn't true. It is. Now, it doesn't mean that every city's used, but my point is that it takes a lot of electricity. And they're talking about, last year they wanted people to just buy electric vehicles in California, and then they told them not to charge them because the battery grid was having a problem. Well, do you think it's suddenly going to get better, or electric companies are going to say, wait a second, we're using a lot more electricity now, let's give to people cheaper. Now that they have to buy our electricity, let's make it less expensive for them. Heck yeah. Oh, everybody does that with their products, right? No. Once they get more people hooked, the price is going to go up. Just like everything else. When you own the market, when the demand and the supply, things happen. When the demand is high and the supply is low, the price goes up. When the supply is high and the demand is low, the price goes down. Well, that's what's going to happen. When it's freezing outside, electric vehicles are notorious for displaying specific problems. One of the most common issues is the loss of battery power. And similar to old cell phones that would stop working once you took them out of your pocket in the winter. That used to be the problem way back. Since the bulk of electric vehicle market is in the northern hemisphere, where the winters are cold and snowy, cold weather battery drain can be a big problem for everyday use. Owners report a reduced range and even the failure to operate especially harsh winter conditions. That could be life-threatening. You could get an electric vehicle and get freeze to death. I know it may sound like exaggerating, but it's not exaggerating. That stuff happens. That's what happens. We wait until it's too late, and we don't want to wait until it's too late. These are just, look at how many reasons why electric vehicles are a bad investment and why gas vehicles are better. There's still more. There's tons more. Now, top speeds are lower. Not so much now. They've gotten a lot better, but most of them aren't going to get near 100 miles an hour, but we shouldn't anyway unless we're on the Autobahn. But, that just tells you that they're controlling the battery use. The faster you go, the more the battery. Having such a low speed is not only disappointing, but also be a problem in emergency situations. That's the other thing. Like, you don't have that problem with a Tesla because they have their fast as snot for a while. But you know what? When some of these other vehicles, they're not. I talked about earlier, like highway driving consumption. To fully understand the range of a modern electric vehicles, you have to comprehend the energy, consumption circle. The advertised range that many manufacturers brag about in the average or city driving figure. However, the highway range is much smaller, sometimes 50% less. They're talking about in the city. The reason that electric vehicles get a lot of energy from regenerative braking, which is the process of getting some power back from stopping and coasting. During city driving, you use your brakes a lot, which reduces your energy consumption. However, while driving on the highway, there's far less or even no braking, so the batteries drain quickly. It's just like a flashlight, right? Flashlights are the same situation. You leave them on, just leave it on steady, and it goes dead quicker than if you just on and off. Tesla may tease their fans with the Cybertruck, a rig that's designed to be the first fully electric commercial vehicle. But the truth is, that's far from reality. No matter how strong or big your battery pack is, the energy consumption under a heavy load is excessive. Regardless of the big torque that electric engines produce when you put a lot of weight on them, they drain the battery quickly. Yes, the internal combustion engine also uses more fuel under load, but not nearly as much as the electric vehicle uses under load. And you've got a tank full of fossil fuel. Electric battery has a much quicker end to it. Another one that I'll bring up that I don't know if this is something that's going to bother many people, but most upscale electric vehicles like Tesla Model S and the Porsche Taycan have advanced infotainment and driving aid systems as standard equipment. Tesla even has the infamous autonomous driving system, which has proven to be far from perfect. But autonomous vehicles are still something that's more, I don't know, what would you call it, more democratic. Because you don't have to buy one. Whereas they're trying to make you buy an electric vehicle. Autonomous vehicles, you can decide you want one or not. They have, the autonomous ones have crashes, some crashes, and some are fatal ones. And if they're electric, that can even be more fatal because a lot of times they catch on fire and they aren't putting them out. Those systems are designed to track your driving habit. They do that as part of the information, just like they do on social media. They track where you are and what you've been looking at and all the stuff. The same thing with an electric car. They can track you totally. Many of them are kind of ugly, as you know. They're little tiny. You ever notice how a lot of electric vehicles are little tiny boxes? I don't know about you, but think about it. They don't talk about this either, but I think about it. You're in this little tiny box and some guy comes along in his Cadillac and you run into him and there's nothing left of your car because it's electric. Right. That's the thing that bothers me about them. They're ugly design. Like, they make some good ones that are pretty. That new BMW is pretty. The Tesla is a good looking ride, no question about it. But looks aren't what's important. Even the 2021 Mustang Mach-E, which shares many design elements with a regular gasoline-powered Mustang, is not an attractive car. Most car enthusiasts think the Tesla Model X has a big egg-shaped design failure with Falcon doors. A lot of people don't like it. Some people do, but not as many. It's good because they're kind of limited. You got that whole battery taking up the whole car. That's why you'll notice that you'll look at a Tesla, and if you get up close and look at them, you'll say, well, wait a second, this is big on the outside and it's not so big on the inside because the battery takes up so much room. They don't have as much room inside. No. Another thing is you keep in mind that these electric vehicles are threatening existing economy models. Some economic experts fear that the mass production of electric vehicles and the focus on the kind of technology will destroy the current economic model. That, in turn, will affect politics and all the worldwide monetary systems as well. And nothing has hurt our economy more than the Green New Deal. That single thing has done more to hurt the U.S. economy than any other thing that the regime has done. It's really made a big difference. It'd be different if they were saving the people. It's not like going to World War II, where our economy takes a little belt because we're fighting against the Nazis and the people that attacked us in other countries, and we're trying to fight tyranny. No, this is where we've made a complete economic change over something that's a pseudoscience. It's not true. If the oil companies lose their monopoly on energy and the oil-rich nations lose their authority on the global political scene, the world will be heading to another crisis. Also, think about the enormous car industry with all the companies that make fuel-related products. That's another side of it, too. Right? All those companies and millions of people will be out of a job, which would put further strain on the economy. I mean, everything. If you look around you, wherever you're sitting right now, look around. Almost everything you look at is built with fossil fuel. Your clothes and the plastic and anything, your glasses, your seats, your chairs, I don't care what it is, unless it's wood or rock, they use fossil fuel to build it. Well, what do we do when they stop having fossil fuel? Oh, and major car companies aren't so sure, although most of the major car companies have at least electric models for sale. They're not fully convinced. They're not getting out of the gas business. The only one that talked about that is GM, and they have a CEO that shouldn't be the CEO. Let's just put it that way. I mean, I'm not a CEO of a big car company, but I have enough common sense to know that. Their board of directors and marketing people have observed how problematic EV segment is. They don't talk about that on the news. No, the fake news doesn't bring that stuff up. There's a lot of things. You don't hear about a lot of the things that happen with electric vehicles. They'll just talk about vehicles burning. They don't talk about that they were electric. Heck no. That's the thing. They're not, it's like Toyota. The CEO of Toyota said that they've laid back on their research on electric vehicles. They're still going to sell electric vehicles and gas vehicles. And if people want an electric one, they're going to sell them to them. But that's not where their research money's going. Their research money's going into fossil fuel engines, which they have one coming out that's going to get 40 miles a gallon, and hydrogen, which is probably the key to the future. We're a ways out on it, but hydrogen will be the way to go. That's the most plentiful thing in the universe, hydrogen, and if they can get so they can fill the car up, if they can get the fuel from the tank into the car, it's going to be fantastic. It'll be just wonderful. It won't take as long. It won't be inconvenience. It won't be trip problems. It'll be all these things that electric vehicles suffer from. The hydrogen vehicle will not. Almost all of them, anyway. Practically unusable in third world countries and markets, the EV craze is limited to just a few first world countries and markets in the world. But other than that, electric vehicles in other areas are non-existent. Even China, the world's biggest market, has a hard time implementing any initiatives for electric cars. Yeah, they want us to buy their electric cars, but their own people aren't buying them because they can't afford them. No, they can, what are they going to do in the rest of the world? If you go to remote parts of the world or any of the developing countries, you'll notice that fossil fuels are still the primary source of energy, and that's not likely to change anytime in our lifetime. That's for sure. A lot of buyers of electric vehicles or a lot of buyers think that electric vehicles are a gimmick. Although Tesla has sold over, 500,000 or 700,000 vehicles in the world, something like that. I forget the total, but there's a lot. With other manufacturers posting considerable production numbers, most car buyers still consider EVs to be some sort of sales trick. Yeah, their specific operation procedures, limited usability, and different driving dynamics make cars for tech geeks. That's what they are, but not as a regular transport devices. If you think about all the things I've mentioned about so far, that if I'm right, if it's true what I'm saying, and I'm not pulling your leg, I'm not like the fake news, well, you got to admit that how does it make any sense to have one? Car consumers are still waiting for mass-produced electric vehicles that will fully replace gasoline-powered vehicles. They don't have any of those. But to do that, they'll need to produce some improvements to draw EV buyers in. They got to get it so that the vehicle's not going to burn up when you catch it on fire or catch on fire. They're going to get it so that you've got a driving range that's reasonable. And the biggest one of all that bothers people, of course, is the expense and the fact that you have to wait so long to charge it. That's just not, I don't know about you, I don't feel good about that. I don't feel safe in that situation. And an electric vehicle can't be the only car in your household. Clearly, there are many limits to electric vehicles in general. Even if you own one and are looking to acquire an EV, you should know that it can't fulfill all your transportation needs. No matter what you do, that can't be your only vehicle. That's especially true if you have a family and need a dependable vehicle for your family. It's not going to work. You could use your electric vehicle in the city for your everyday commute. However, if you want to go on a trip and with your family, you'll need an internal combustion engine vehicle due to the range concerns and the personal peace of mind. I mean, I don't know about you. When I go on vacation, I got 2 weeks vacation. I don't want to spend a week of it driving and waiting for my car to charge. No, that's what could happen though if you go any distance. If I'd have taken an electric vehicle on my trip to my daughter's house, which was 1,400 miles, I would have taken 4 times as long, or at least 3 times as long. Instead of 2 days, it would have taken 6. That's true. I mean, that's the math. Figure it out. They're a hard sell. Most drivers lease their electric cars and then return them to the dealer after a few years to get a new model. However, those people who have bought electric vehicles could experience great difficulty selling them on the used car market or trading them in at a dealership. That's because electric cars depreciate much faster than gas-powered vehicles, since the technology is so new and still evolving, not to mention the fact that your phone, what happened to the battery? Oh, a couple of years in the battery. They're no different. That's a lithium battery too. It's just the cars are bigger. That's what happens. And they have warranties on the batteries. Yeah. We'll go over that here in a few minutes and see how much warranty you think that is. These units aren't meant to be long-term, and to update fully costs thousands of dollars. Would you want a 4-year-old EV? Think about yourself. Would you go in a car lot? Would you buy one? People buying a used vehicle are doing it because they're trying to afford the purchase. Well, how can that be? And if you make the electric vehicle affordable to other 4-year-old used vehicles, well, that person that had the electric vehicle just took a beating like nobody's business to get it there. For a used EV to be a real used vehicle market, the value had to drop sharply. Not to mention that dealers aren't going to take a chance on battery costs. No, dealers don't like taking chances. Believe me, I was in that business. They don't want to take any chances at all. They don't want my people taking any chances. I know what I got. That's not worry about it. They look at an electric vehicle, they're thinking, well, who can work on it in my shop? Is the battery still good? How do I tell? Do I have anybody that can really tell that? What are the possibilities? You see what I'm saying? They don't know. So they don't take any chances. They just hit you with a figure that's so low that they could take it to the auction, get rid of it at the auction, or they just figure that it's so low they can sell it to somebody. That's right. That's resale value. That's the biggest. That's another part of that cost factor I was talking about, where electric vehicles cost more than gas vehicles. Those numbers I was throwing around didn't even include the depreciation difference. So if you buy an electric vehicle, you not only paid, let's say you got a good deal, you paid $10,000 more. Well, if you got 10% more depreciation, that's $1,000. So really, you only paid it cost you $11,000 more, actually, because of the depreciation and resale value. Then there's the safety issue. First of all, the power cables in the garage. I don't know, any of you that have children? I had children. My kids are grown now, but I had children. You want your kids hanging around out there around the cables in your garage, or you tell them now you can't go in the garage anymore? You don't have a gas pump at your house for a reason. That's why there's gas stations and people don't have them at their house. Sure. What if there's a fire? Read the articles. Go online. Go to YouTube. Don't take my word for it. Go to YouTube. Watch the articles from firemen. The fires are difficult to put out. Remember in March of 2021, a ship off the Azores Islands that had 4,000 electric vehicles on it? One car gone on fire. Over 2 weeks, they tried to put it out. They couldn't put it out, and the ship sank. Yeah. Now, here they are. The whole company that builds them is out there, and the ship companies are trying to put the fire out, and nobody can put the fire out. Now, you say, well, that was 2 years ago. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. So what's that mean? Have you seen anything in the news about they won't catch on fire anymore? No. In fact, if you look at firemen on YouTube, some of their stories, they'll tell you, your electric car in your garage, the battery catches on fire, your house is going to burn down, period. They're not going to be able to get that fire out enough to stop your house from burning down, or at least go through some seriously significant problems, damage, until the fire does go out. And they'll tell you right in there that sometimes they'll put a fire out on a battery and it'll start up on its own again. Look at all the fires that were caused by electric cars when there are floods. So you don't talk about that on the news. No, the fake news keeps that all out of it, but you can find it. You have to look for it online. There's stuff out there. Go on YouTube. YouTube's not hiding those things that I don't believe. They weren't when I was looking, but the firemen will tell you there's a big difference in the temperature when they're burning. Huge difference. It takes an average of, here's another issue, just normal driving. Did you know that it takes an average of about 15 feet more to stop an electric vehicle because of the weight difference and the tire difference? They have easy rotation tires, which some don't have that now, but most do. And they're much, much heavier, so it takes longer to stop. Well, close your eyes, don't tell me, don't tell anybody, and imagine all the close calls you've had in your life in your car when you're driving. Would 15 feet have made any difference in any of those? Oh, right. Remember those close calls? The weight's hard to stop. The weight causes you to use more tires. The weight causes the brakes to wear out faster. All these things about them being less cost to service is baloney. Battery costs are huge. Sure, they have warranties, right? I've talked about that earlier. They do have warranty. The warranty kicks in when the battery holds less than 70%. Using phones as an example, what's it like when your phone gets to even 80%? You can't use it. It's dead in an hour, right? If you were driving along, so you can't get your battery warranted because it's at 75%. If you take in consideration the fact that your battery's down to 75% and you have to use things like even if you just used your air conditioner, or let's say you didn't use your air conditioner, use your lights and wipers, your driving range would be half of what it was because of that battery. And the batteries are prorated. You might still end up paying $5,000 of the battery cost because they're not going to cover all of it. You got 5 years use out of it now, or 4 years use out of it. Now you need a battery. Well, you got to pay for the 4 years you had it. It's like anything else. They're not going to come up with a system where you don't pay. Plus, as lithium becomes more in demand, what will the batteries cost then? Currently, a battery requires 25,000 pounds of earth to be moved to come up with all the needed minerals. Magnesium, which is probably what causes most of the fire, nickel, lithium, aluminum, cobalt, copper, hundreds and hundreds of pounds of that stuff. There's 25,000 pounds of what has to be moved to build one, and those units are required. So what are the costs going to go to? There's no lithium mined in America. So we're going to have to buy it everywhere else, and everywhere else is going to be bidding on it too. Oh, yeah. It's a thing. We're not in control then. We're not with fossil fuel. We could be the number one supplier in the world, or we were, if it wasn't for the crazies in the White House. Insurance costs are climbing because a damaged battery costs so much to replace. Rates are high. Check with your insurance company, and they'll get you the first year. They're trying to help the cause, a lot of the corporations. But if you check around, you'll see that electric car insurance is going way up because they got to pay for that battery. And the battery's a lot of money. You can just go in a fender bender. You got to remember, the bottom of the car is a battery. So you get in a fender bender that would have been normally $2,000 or $3,000. Now it's all of a sudden $13,000 because it cracked the battery, and you have to replace the whole battery. Those are things that we've got to think about. That's important stuff. Have you looked at your electric bill lately? Electricity is getting expensive. In many cities, there's no expense savings electric over gas. Yeah, as a matter of fact, in some major cities like Boston, and I'm trying to think of all the ones, Philadelphia, the cost for equal, if you use the chart to figure the time element of charging, how much charging driving time you get versus the gas mileage, you'll find that it costs more. And where's electricity going to go if we add more and more to the grid? We add more stress on the grid. What about 5 years from now? Oh, but if you've already got one, what can you do about it? Now, if you're rich, you're in the top 10% in income, you don't care. You park an electric vehicle in your driveway just so you can have one. Say you have one, right? So it looks politically correct to have one in your driveway, but you're not going to use it. You're not going to take a chance of getting stuck on the thruway and coast off the thruway onto the side of the road in whatever part of town they built the thruway in, and then wait there while they call a wrecker to come to you because you can't get gas. You can't down with your can get some gas. No, you got to sit there and wait. You know what? An electric car, when it's dead, the air conditioning doesn't work. The lights don't work. None of it works. Nope. That's the thing. You don't tell you about that stuff, but that's stuff you got to consider. What's the factor for your family? Let's say you get a 240-volt charger for your garage so you can charge your car in 4 or 5 hours, You don't have to worry about it taking so long. You can get in an hour, you can get, maybe 80% charged. It's that last 20% that takes a long time. But you got 80% charged in an hour, you get 100, 150 miles. You can get to work and back, no problem stuff, in a half hour or an hour's time and some of those. But you got these high-powered cables in your garage. I don't know about you. I wouldn't want my kids around that. You say, well, you got to teach them. Sure you do. You got to teach them a lot of things, but it doesn't always work out that way, does it? You're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. As far as charging, it's 8 to 10 hours at home with most of the chargers, right? They say they've got 60,000 EV chargers around the country. They don't. No, they got 60,000 charging units, but there are 8 to a pack. So it's really about 7,000 stations because there's 8 at each station. They're counting each station, each single charger as one. And I don't know if you go buy one, you pull up and there's a spot there for you in a few minutes. You got to wait till the other guy's done, then you can pull in. And what do? Just sit there. I wonder if the fact that people, as we get more and more people charging it for long periods of time and electric charging stations, I wonder if that's going to draw crime to those areas. It makes sense to me that it would. They're not protected by law. They're not protected by housing or they're not the same as, they've got to sit there a lot longer. It's not like you're in a gas station where you wheel in, fill up, and wheel out, right? No. I think that it's going to be an area where you might have to worry about crime. You got to get on that charger. You got to curl up and wait. I don't know about you. That's not what I want to do. That's not what I want to subject my family to. So all these things, you take the time and the effort and the cost and the fires and the safety issues, and I'm not even naming them all. So far, I haven't. There's other reasons not to buy an electric vehicle. I mean, I haven't put them all in this podcast. I mean, we're already at an hour in the podcast, and I'm still giving out reasons why you shouldn't buy one. And now, if someone was sitting here that was against fossil fuel, what would they come up to as a reason not to buy a fossil fuel vehicle? Well, you're ruining the atmosphere, the global warming. That's about it. That would be it. I mean, we didn't talk about things like how many people will be put out of work if we don't have electric vehicles. We're not going to talk about that. We didn't talk about how, if you make our military all electric, how ignorantly, incredibly stupid that would be, because on a battlefield, you can't haul your charger out on the battlefield. We can't talk about that, how dumb those things that they say are. It's almost like you might as well just surrender. Those are little things that make a difference. All these things may be one thing that you'd say, well, that one thing isn't going to make a difference. But I know one thing for sure in my life that I've learned: a little plus a little plus a little equals a lot. And there's a lot of reasons not to buy an electric vehicle. Too many to come up with reasons to answer those reasons. You just can't get beyond the facts are the facts. That's what I'm trying to say. And there's more. And I was just sitting here trying to think off the top of my head of some more. I made that list, and there's still more that I've come up over the past few weeks, little ones that I didn't talk about, things that you have to remember when it comes to an electric vehicle. 3 or 4 years down the road, what are you going to do with it? You're going to buy a battery? You're going to trade it in when it's worth nothing? Is anybody going to want to buy it from you with an electric vehicle when it's like a used phone? Ever tried to sell a used phone? Good luck with that. It's just, there's so many things. It's just hard to rationalize. And that's why I said the whole point of this was the story I read in Consumer Report. Consumer Report said, oh no, demand's up 350%. That is such a flat out and out lie that Consumer Report, the CEO, should go downstairs and fire that writer. Because that's not the truth. That is not the truth. And demand is not up anywhere near that. Demand for an electric vehicle that doesn't take hours to charge, that sells for the same price as a gas vehicle, will not catch on fire, those are in demand. But good luck with that. They've been trying to do that for 200 years and it hasn't worked yet. I don't know why we're keep trying. That's just what's going on. So in any event, that's Deal Talk for this week. If you have a question or request or even a comment, please call or text or email me. Callers can leave a message on 407-801-4071. That's 407-801-4071. Or you can email me at dealtalk@mail.com or dealtalkpodcast@gmail.com. So there's 2 email addresses. Please don't forget to do a review and do yourself a favor by getting a copy of The Informed Buyer from Amazon or Nook. Please. The best $3 you'll ever spend. I don't care what it is. I today was at Starbucks. I got a bagel and a coffee, and it was $6. It wasn't going to save me anything or do anything for me except for taste good. Want to be a hero? Tell your friends and family about Deal Talk and be a hero when they save. You'll be a hero. However I can help you, contact me and you'll hear from me. Everybody does. And remember, like we've talked about on every show, every payment you get should be CPI, complete payment information. You need to know the amount the payment was figured on, the number of months they used, the interest rate they used, any required down payment to get to the amount they used. And you have to get those terms, that information, every single time they quote you a payment to make sure nothing's changed. Every single time. And if you're doing your own financing or you're paying cash or whatever, and you're going to get a price that's all in. None of this 20,000 plus fees. Nope. Get a price that's all in. Every single cost required to buy the vehicle. The tax, the plates, the dealer fee, aftermarket options, everything. That's called OTD. Out the door.